Right, good morning everybody. Welcome back to Sofa Safari. Some of you may be wondering why this morning I'm starting the drive off the vehicle. But if you have a look behind me, there's a big beautiful tree there. And if you have a look, there's some mud going up the tree. And there were some of you that got the question right online and some of you that got the question wrong. But you know, for the most part, well done guys. So if you remember what I said, the high point is going to be the elephant scratching. The bottom is going to be a warthog. A little bit further up you're going to get a buffalo, and then for all of those that said rhino, well done, rhino would be the next one up. So yeah, if you see that's sort of the gradient level that you can look at when trying to decipher which animal actually scratched mud off on this tree, or any tree really. So yeah, but given the heights of this one, that would be a really big rhino. So I'm going to go with the elephant here. But yeah, good morning guys. This morning we're going to try and look for the leopard cubs. Try being the key word. They're being a little bit elusive recently, and their mom just seems to be out and about a bit too often for our liking, but I'm sure we'll get them all beautifully playing in the riverbed at some point. And then just as we were driving up this road now, we've got the tracks for the lioness, and she has been walking with her cubs throughout the night. So yeah, quite normal at this point in time for her to start taking the little ones on short brief walks up and around or in and around the territory before heading back towards the den for the day. So yeah, let's see if we can find the leopards. I mean, that's goal number one, and then we'll continue to focus on all the little intricacies that you've all been asking for. But yeah, well done to everyone that said rhino. Let's see what else is out there for the morning. Right, so we're here at the infamous Leopard Den 2 track. Make sure my Land Rover's in low range so we can climb over the sand. So yeah, we're just going to hold our thumbs, cross our fingers for luck, and hope that we get a beautiful sighting here this morning. And it's fun to do a bit of 4x4ing as well. So we're just sitting here at the leopard den, rather quiet leopard den this morning. But it's a little bit cold, so maybe the cubbies are deciding to stay in bed, you know. Some of us that are wise do that on mornings like this, a bit windy. But Eagle-Eye Brit sitting at the back picked up on a pretty beautiful kudu bull just down the riverbed there, which obviously with the power of camera lenses you can see a lot better the way Brit films it. But have a look at those horns. I mean, it's super wide. It's really, really impressive. And the way that we know it's a male kudu and not a female kudu is because of those horns. All right, females don't have any horns. They form part of what we call the spiral horned antelope family, so you can see quite clearly why they're part of that. But interestingly enough, it's those horns that can sometimes act as a little bit of a disadvantage. I mean, look, they're great weaponry for fighting off predators. They're also great weaponry for fighting each other. But because of the nature of that twist, those curls, they kind of act like a corkscrew. And when the kudus fight, they, on occasion, not super often, but on occasion they will get stuck together just because those horns sort of wind into each other. And, it's sort of like being stuck to your worst enemy for the day. And sadly, sometimes they can never get apart and they end up dying like that. Or, a sneaky hyena or a lion pops into the scene and finds himself an easy kill. The reason I'm saying call is perhaps you can hear that call now. That is a pearl-spotted owlet, just a tiny little owl like this, and he's calling somewhere up here. I think me starting to call like him kind of confused him there for a couple of seconds, but he's just up here somewhere. So if he starts calling, or if we can get a good view of him, we'll definitely show you. But, back to the kudu. He's just having himself some breakfast. And I would say that he's a fully mature bull. He's huge. Those horns are massive. And there's a bit of a theory that goes around. It's by no means concrete information, but they say that these spirals that you see in those horns, each one of those spirals equates to about 2 to 3 years of age. Up until they get to about 12 years, it doesn't really spiral past there, but they do get this magnificent white tip at the end of their horns, and that's when you know that you're dealing with a fully mature, in the prime of his life, kudu bull. And that's what this guy is here. No leopard cubs. So we're going to leave the scene. we also have to always remember to be ethical in these situations, and if Mom was there, we could stick around for a lot longer. But as soon as we sort of ascertain that Mom isn't on site, then due to us, we don't want to affect the natural way these leopards operate and how cubs perceive us. We'd rather leave the scene. But one of these days we'll get a beautiful sighting of Mom with the cubs, I have no doubt. But it brought up an interesting point for me and Britt. It's that at the moment, because of lockdown, all of our trackers have gone off, and it just shows you how much a lot of us rely on trackers. They really are artists out here in terms of how they find things and track animals track for track, while we drive around with our guests and explain beautiful things. The trackers are on the ground looking for these cats and rhinos and things like that. So we miss our trackers. Jack, Kevin, Glenn, if you guys are watching, Patrick, Stephen, you're all amazing. We miss you guys. So we look forward to you coming back and to us all tracking things together again. But let's see what else we can find this morning. Alright, so the bird that we have in frame is in particular for my good friend Brian Jones. Brian, I know you're watching. Hope the UK is going well. Hope it's not too cold. This bird is called a Cape turtle dove, and one of the more common birds, one of the more boring birds out here. But I know Brian loves his call, and the reason being is, if you hear the bird calling before 12, midday, it sounds like he's saying, work harder, work harder, work harder. However, if it's calling after 12, he's saying, drink lager, and that's one of Brian Jones's favorite jokes. So I thought I'd stop and point this bird out for all of you, and let you know that cheesy joke comes from Brian Jones, who joins us at Tula usually 2 times a year. So hopefully we get to see you a bit later this year, Brian. But for now, let's enjoy the Cape turtle dove. Pretty similar to all the doves you guys get around the world, which is why we don't often stop for doves out on safari. But they are beautiful birds nonetheless, and they also deserve a little bit of limelight every once in a while. So yeah, there he is. He's just waking up, and going to soon be getting the day started. It'd be lovely if he called right now, so you could hear my ridiculous impersonation once again. This is the African hoopoe, that beautiful black, white and brown, and then that ridiculous crest that makes them look like a naughty punk. They're quite a common bird. I don't want to say extremely common, but for instance, we find them even in Johannesburg. And I remember growing up as a kid in my mom and dad's backyard, or front yard I should say, just about every day there was an African hoopoe pecking at the ground there. They've got these beautiful long beaks that allow them to pierce into the ground to find little insects underground and things like that. So quite specialized, that long bill. But yeah, otherwise just a beautiful bird. From what I understand, there is a species that's very similar found in the Middle East. I believe it's called an Israeli hoopoe, which is, from what I hear, exactly the same thing, or pretty much the same thing, just found in a different area. So what we have here is quite a cute little dance going on, and this is a red-billed hornbill. They're very sweet to just watch. Sometimes when you stop next to them, they get a little bit of stage fright, and it takes them a few minutes to get acclimatized to you being there before they start their little dance. But the pairs do this just about every day, every morning. There you go. And it's just a way, in my opinion, for them to maybe seal their bond, and also get a little bit territorial, reclaim or put a new claim on what is theirs, in their opinion. And sometimes you get the whole family doing it together. So hornbills are very family orientated birds, and you often you'll see sometimes 4 or 5 of them, mom, dad, and all the chicks bouncing around together, and sometimes all dancing together. It's just very sweet to watch. One of the things you need to be careful of when driving around a game reserve that's relatively quiet, because there's obviously no tourists and not too many vehicles driving around, is spider webs. So as soon as the spiders realize, hold on, there's not so many cars driving up and down these roads, they decide to make their webs right across the road. I mean, if you think about it, it's a great place to try and catch insects and things like that. But you got to be careful that you don't end up with a face full of spider. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not the greatest feeling in the world. Yeah, they're called, the ones that you can see now are called golden orb spiders. And you also get the garden orb spiders, and they make these beautiful, beautiful webs, which are incredibly strong. In fact, when you get right close to them, you can see that some of the webs, particularly the main support strands, are like a bright yellow, like a, let me rather say like a mustardy yellow. That's just because it's so many pieces of, or individual pieces of silk that have been wrapped around each other to make that very strong support beam. And it's not a nice feeling to have that go across your face or across your body, knowing the size of the spider that's behind it. So we've just seen some waterbuck and zebra running across the road. Now, people's first instinct is often to think that, hold on, there's lions chasing them or something. But with the windy conditions we're having this morning, most animals are a little bit on edge. It's also, unfortunately, when we have windy days like this, it also means that we don't see too many animals because they're scared. You know, they can't hear, they can't smell, and very often they can't see too well because of the wind blowing everything around. So that makes them a little bit on edge, and they end up running away from shadows, running away from each other. But you never know. Maybe they are running away from a lion or a leopard or something like that. So we're just taking it very slowly through this area to see if indeed there is something dodgy about. Squirrels alarm calling, some birds alarm calling, which, you know, they could also just be alarm calling on something like an eagle or a snake. So it's not always to say that there's a big cat moving around. But whenever we hear these sorts of sounds, you can hear that in the background, it does give us a little bit of a reason to just stop and sort of investigate the area. Maybe a spotted cat pops out of somewhere here. This is a tree squirrel, and he's busy alarm calling at something. You can see how into it they get with their little tail flicking. It's kind of a, yeah, a little bit of a desperate call. But yeah, they do this when they see something they don't particularly like. If you remember me talking a little bit earlier, maybe a leopard, a snake, a bird of prey, something like an eagle. And they look at it intently, and until they can't see it anymore, and they just call and call and call. Basically what he's doing is just warning everything around him. But it is, oh, he's really upset now. He's bounced back behind the bushes there, but yeah, that's what a squirrel sounds like when he is alarm calling. Quite funny, quite cute at the same time. But yeah, he seems to be calming down a little bit now. Probably thinking to himself, yeah, told that leopard off. But unfortunately, we didn't see the leopard, if there was one to start off with. But yeah, let me see if there's any tracks crossing the road. He was looking that way, so who knows, maybe we will spot a leopard. However, this morning has been quite quiet out here, and you know, not every game drive is jam-packed with animals to see. The weather and the conditions often have a part to play, but not every day spent in Africa is like the Lion King, folks, so please bear that in mind. But we'll find some interesting things to show you along the way. Right, so the pretty little bird that's Brit is locked onto at the moment is called a magpie shrike. Used to be called a long-tailed shrike, but very often bird names get changed just to try and make it a little bit more accessible for people that aren't big on birding just yet, make it a little bit more literally named. Like the grey go-away bird from earlier. Grey, it's a bird and it says go away. These guys, long-tailed shrike, it kind of makes sense. Now, within that group of birds that you can see there, you'll see some of them have long tails and some of them do not have long tails. And the ones that don't have long tails, they look a little bit ratty, for lack of a better word. They're sort of in that awkward stage that we all go through. They're still youngsters, they're juveniles, and they're flying around with the adults, maybe for one of the first times, or, you know, flying around as a unit. And this particular bird is a flock bird, so you often find them in groups, you know, sort of moving across the canopy of the bush. They are also carnivorous, part of the shrike family. But yeah, nice to see the juveniles out and about with mom and dad in their awkward sort of teenage years, if you will. As I say, we've all been there, guys, so don't judge. And yeah, I'm going through another awkward stage at the moment with my mullet that some people have picked up on. And you know, during lockdown we don't exactly have a hairdresser on site. Brits has offered to cut my hair for me, but I don't know, guys, what do you think? Should I let her do that, or should I carry on growing the mullet? Some of you might be asking why I am kneeling on this mound of sand, or you know, there it is, the rest of it, just so you can see behind me. It is a rather big mound of sand, and it's dug by or put here by a particular animal that a number of publications say dig as fast as 3 men with shovels. Now, I don't know how they ever measured that, but it makes me laugh every time I see it. The animal that made this mound is called the Aardvark. And for those of you that don't know what an aardvark is, basically in English that means earth pig. And the reason we call them an earth pig is because they've got this beautiful, I don't know if you want to call it beautiful, but it's a very pig-like snout, and they move the earth. So, earth pig, very good at digging. And this is where a question from little Molly Wilcock comes in. She asked us what animals we know are around us that we don't really see, and the aardvark is one of those. So, in my you know, almost 10-year career now, I think I've only seen about 4 aardvarks to date, maybe 5, and all of those 4 or 5 sightings have been literally like 5 to 10 seconds, Molly. So it is an animal that we know is here. We see the signs for them, we see their tracks, we see where they've been digging, but we hardly ever see them. Now, what this animal has done is she's come down, or he's come down. I think it's a she, because I think you know, the night that we saw her or him, she was digging, or he was digging. But I think I'm going to go with the she, because I think she was actually digging a den here to maybe give birth that evening. Of course, we drove past, we saw her briefly with the spotlight, tried to reverse, and as we got back here, we saw a little bit digging, and then she just ducked underground and disappeared. Now, aardvarks are notorious for digging into termite mounds because they like to eat termites. Well, termites and ants, but primarily termites is what they're known for. And so you often find big, grand termite spires with a hole dug in the side, and that is basically every time that's aardvarks that go and dig in there. They've got these incredible claws. It's almost like these 3 long claws that they're able to dig with, and this is where that saying, dig as fast as 3 men with shovels, come in. So it always makes me think about them having an aardvark and 3 men standing next to each other with a stopwatch and telling everyone to get ready, set and go, which is a bit ridiculous, but it's fun to think about. They can dig incredibly quickly though, and very, very efficiently. I don't think there's anything out here that can dig nearly as efficiently as they can. And because of this action of them being able to dig into termite mounds or dig their own dens like this, they enable a whole host of other animals to make use of these dens or these diggings once they're done with them. Things like hyenas will den in them, wild dogs, leopards have even been known to use them, lions have been known to use them, a whole host of reptiles, and even some birds. So it's a very interesting part of the chain, or a very interesting link in the chain of the ecology in this area, and it's interesting to know just how many animals will use other animals in order to thrive out here. So yeah, the aardvark hole, guys, and a lot of sand here, so I can only imagine underground is a pretty big cavern where she was possibly denning, or at least living for a few weeks or maybe a few months. Yeah. Alright, so we've happened upon some elephants this morning. It's been a little bit quiet up until this point, so we're very happy to find Africa's largest mammal, or at least terrestrial mammal, a land-dwelling mammal. And we've got the cutest little baby here who is playing around with his older cousins. It was quite sweet a bit earlier. The older elephant had its trunk over the little guy's head, just sort of a little bit of a bonding thing going on, a little bit of protection. But always sweet to see elephants so small and to know what they can turn into. That particular elephant there, the little one, is probably about a month old, if that. You know, he could even be less than that. He's still tiny. He's just a little tot. But yeah, I'm very glad that we found some elephants for the morning. They're always a lot of fun to spend time with. They're always up to something. There's always a little bit of drama going on, a little bit of play behavior, maybe a tree getting pushed over, maybe some butt scratching against a tree. You know, it just depends what part of their day you find them in. At the moment though, this herd that we've come across, and around us is probably a good sort of 10, 15, maybe even 20 elephants. They sort of just getting their breakfast for the day. Which doesn't sound like a bad idea. Myself and Britt have been eating some of Ryan's rusks this morning, so we are starting to feel a little bit hungry. Rusks can only sustain you for so long. So we got this sort of toddler over here giving us a bit of attitude. And you often find that within elephant herds that the younger the elephant, the more full of nonsense they are. And I'm not particularly scared of him. I've had elephants many times throughout my career of this size charging me, or at least pretend charging me, and as soon as they realize you don't move, they kind of get a bit scared and run away. But it's always quite cute because you can see Mom in the background. She's just eating a bush. She's just quite happy with life, you know, not really worried about us. But the little guys, they have to prove their strength to us, their protective nature to us. They have to make sure we understand who's boss. And don't worry, my little friend, you are the boss. Lovely to see the little milk tusks coming through there. And here he comes round again. Good morning. We come in peace. It's those little milk tusks that you may have seen just a few seconds ago. There he comes again. They can cause their moms quite a bit of hassle as they grow older, because elephants like to suckle quite long, for quite a long period, you know, up until they're like 3-4 years old, maybe even longer than that. And by that point they've got those little tusks that are starting to stick out, and you can imagine how that digs into mom when they are trying to suckle. And you often see the big females getting really upset with the little guys, screaming at them and shouting at them, just because it is fairly painful for them to suckle them at that age. The elephant you're looking at the moment is a young female. And you know, elephants within a herd like this will be related to each other, either cousins, sisters, aunts, brothers. I wouldn't really say things like uncles and fathers, because as elephants, or male elephants, get to about 16, 17 years old, they begin to go through puberty. And just like human males going through puberty, elephants are full of nonsense, and the females don't enjoy that. So it's usually around 17 to 20 years old that male elephants will begin to get chased away from their mother herd, and from there they start to live quite a solitary life. They will link up with other elephants of the same age, and potentially older male elephants, which is a very important part of elephant society, because it gives them that opportunity to learn from an older male. It's sort of like a father-son relationship, or an uncle-nephew relationship, or an older brother, younger brother relationship. And so it's not uncommon to come across one of the big established bulls, you know, maybe like I was saying a bit earlier, the 6-ton monsters, and along with them is maybe 3 or 4 youngsters that are trying to figure this whole world out. You know, they've recently been kicked out of home, and they're trying to learn from one of the bigger guys who knows how it's done. It also helps to keep elephants, male elephants, in line. It makes them gentlemen. And you find that in game reserves that have populated or repopulated the area with elephants, when large male elephants are not introduced into that new population, the young elephants, the bulls at least, can be quite mischievous and quite aggressive, and they can attack other animals, they can attack other elephants, and they attack vehicles. And as soon as you bring one of those big bulls in, or a few of them in at least, that sort of nonsense starts to fall away. So it's really interesting to know how elephant society works. This is not a simple animal, guys. This is a highly intelligent, sentient being that has incredible family morals and family bonds, and communication, and all those amazing things you've heard about elephants are mostly true. But if you have any questions on them, or if you are a bit skeptical about something you've heard about an elephant in the past, feel free to ask the question, and we'll happily try to get back to you in the next video. So we've spent a little bit of time with these elephants now. It's wonderful to find them this morning. Always a pleasure to spend time with elephants, and I'll say that my tracker, his name's Jack, he often gets a little bit fidgety because I can spend 2-3 hours with elephants while he wants to go and track leopards and lions. So he'll often bring me back to reality and get me to move on. But yeah, wonderful to spend a bit of time with them. We are going to cruise off now and see if we can find anything else. It's getting a little bit late. The sun is starting to burn the skin a small bit. So we're going to see what we can find and slowly head back home for the morning. We have happened upon a very interesting scene. A wonderful scene, but quite cool. We've got the cheeky little jackals running around. One's just having a bit of a sleep on the floor, the other one's running around there, and there was a third that ran off over there. So we have been under the impression that we have a family of denning jackals in the area for a while. So we thought we'd come and check it out, and we have found the jackals, but they seem to be having a bit of a house party. They're not really self-isolating by the looks of things, the naughty buggers. They've got their impala friends hanging around with them, and they also have a wildebeest in the background. And then a little bit off in the bushes over on the left-hand side is some zebra, which are just slowly moving out of the scene now. So yeah, quite a smorgasbord, great word, of animals that we have in front of us at the moment, and not animals that you would expect to see so peacefully hanging out together. Generally speaking, jackals are a bit of a predator. They are omnivorous though, so they do eat fruits and seeds and things like that. But they'll also, if given the opportunity, they will kill and eat a baby impala, or they will eat birds, or raid a bird's nest at least, and eat their eggs, and maybe eat some bugs and things like that along the way. But it's nice to see that all of them are so peacefully dwelling together. I mean, at the moment, the jackal poses no threat to the impala, and definitely not the wildebeest. I mean, he's just way too big. He'll bounce them off of him all day long. And the impala much the same. It's just too big for a jackal to take on. And so they're all peacefully hanging out together. She strikes again, everybody. We were on the way home, for a nice cup of coffee, maybe a little bit of breakfast. Stomachs are starting to make some sounds, but then out of nowhere the famous lion spotter named Brit shouts again, "Oop, lion!" And so we backed up, and true's Bob, we've got what I presume to be one of the river pride females. And she's just lying there looking over the grass at us. She was watching something flying above her now. Lions are pretty good at that. When they see some of the eagles or maybe some of the vultures flying, they will look at them because they want to see where those vultures are going. It's a little known fact about lions, but they are actually pretty heavy on the scavenging side, and so when you see vultures flying somewhere, you know that something might be dead and or ready to eat, and so lions will often follow vultures and maybe chase off the leopard that's killed something, or the hyenas that have killed something, or the other lions that have killed something, or just whatever it is that may have expired, unfortunately. We have spent a good 20 minutes or so with this lioness. It's always good to be in the company of lions. She hasn't been doing very much. This is not the optimal lion performance time. She has moved slightly just to lie down somewhere else, typical lions. But we are going to leave her there for the day, and for all of you that are interested, she's about 150 meters, maybe 200 meters from Tandatuila camp itself, just on the southern side, down the riverbed from the camp. So that beautiful view that you all can remember if you've been with us before. If you look left down the riverbed, she's just down that side. So yeah. Anyway, let's leave her for the day. Let's let her get up to what she wants to get up to, and maybe we'll catch up with her over the next few days. Anyway, have a good day, guys. Myself and Britt are going to be signing off here for the morning. So yeah, we'll see you around.